Crash Bandicoot has made waves over the years with his delicious platformers, giving players a mix of unparalleled entertainment and the feeling of wanting to drown themselves in a toilet. It's undeniable that this series helped pave the way for 3D platformers as a whole, but I wanted to take time to look at the other stuff that are not platformers. Not even Crash of the Titans, no Crash Bandicoot Purple, where the orange peel is dipping his toes in the Spyroverse. We're talking about the other stuff, like the Normie Sphere classic Crash Team Racing. A title that might as well be handcrafted by Zeus, Jesus, God, Satan, the whole squad, that allows players to peel around tracks with their favorite nonsensical characters from these lands. What can you really say about it that hasn't already been said? You got people still fantasizing about it, relieving themselves to the bends and ramps scattered about. It's a digital fetish that ushered in true dominance in the kart racing space. Team Racing took Mario Kart, stood on the 3 line, shooting that bitch all the way back to Japan, for the most part at least. My only real issue with this game is how easy it is. Even when you're playing on hard mode, you can give Team Racing the belt-to-ass treatment without any problems, never losing a single race. It's quite unfortunate how we do have a Jake's Law situation here. It's a different spin for Crash, considering how a lot of the mainline entries are pretty challenging, but I don't think many people seem to mind this game being brain dead, since it does play exceptionally well for a title that released in 1999. It cemented itself as an all-time classic relatively easily. You can give this game to a 30-year-old, load them into adventure, they'll see Aku spawn in, hotboxing the invisible sphere you're both sitting inside of, and it will return them back to the days where if people found out you played video games, they'd want to beat you down the street black and blue for seemingly no reason at all. But as we know, the players sopping up wet nacho cheese from their controllers, siphoning gallons of Mountain Lion down their throat, anticipated a sequel to this game that took 4 years to be carpet bombed into stores, simply named Crash Nitro Kart, being a major step up from Team Racing, so it's kind of a shock to me that in the land of the normies, Nitro Kart doesn't get mentioned as much as Team Racing does. Unsurprisingly, the graphical fidelity and core gameplay is a lot smoother, with a slightly expanded story mode, including both good and evil, who are summoned to the intergalactic Roman Colosseum by Velo to find the fastest racer in the galaxy, so his turkey neck fat ass can try to beat them. It is basically copy-pasting what they did with nitrous oxide in the first game, although here, the replay value is increased drastically since you need to play through the game with both gangs to see the true ending. I'd say it's worth doing if you've never done it before. The only problem you'd need to deal with is the loading screens. I don't know why these things take a goddamn century. I understand they're loading the epitome of greatness, but it's truly unreal dealing with this constantly. Whenever you win races, you gotta sit there waiting for a minute or two to watch Crash shake his breasts in celebration, to then wait a minute or two again. As irritating as this can be though, it's the only real complaint that could be levied towards Nitro Kart, aside from, once again, the difficulty hogwash. You can beat the entire game into a pulp without the use of a J-Cordich juicer, regularly indenting your tires' prints onto your opponent's skulls. Again, people do seem to be fine with that, thanks to it playing similar to the legendary kart racing extravaganza they experienced previously. Apparently, the overlords expected this to happen, hence why a Game Boy Advance version of Nitro Kart was made. The only kart racing title I've ever played on Game Boy Advance was Mario Kart Super Circuit, which was fine, but after playing Nitro Kart, I'd rather be one of the items getting flattened by the kart's wheels than play Super Circuit ever again. Now, obviously, when you compare Crash Nitro Kart Jr. to Nitro Kart Sr., it's a pathetic stain on a person's boot that would have its head lopped off by the king's men if you tried bestowing this upon your lord. But if you're looking at it solely as a Game Boy Advance title, it's solid enjoyment. The graphics and gameplay are definitely above average for a GBA title, containing mostly what you'd expect. For some reason, there are more more characters in this version because you can play as every boss, and the amount of tracks is stripped down slightly, also having them be turned into a purely flat ground rather than the more off-the-goop ones you see on PS2 or Xbox, which shouldn't be too shocking to anybody. If a person managed to create a Game Boy game with all this shit going on without applying its molten lava cosmetic catching fire to the console, the creator would deserve the golden touch to swim in endless riches at that point. To most, this is where the handheld iterations of Crash Kart Racers ends, but there are still more that came on phones, attempting to continue the Nitro Kart series with Crash Nitro Kart 2 that plays quite well for a medieval phone title, or at least it would if you could play it on an actual phone. The only reasonable way to play these is through emulation, unless you really want to perform a SeaWorld at home ring jumping show to make them work on your current mobile device. I don't, so I'm stuck with this, and it runs like an absolute train wreck, constantly crashing every time a character inhales. It was not the most riveting whirl, repeating the same races, never having the ability to progress an inch. So it forced me to scurry over to the other iOS Crash racing game, called Crash Nitro Kart 3D, that actually came before Crash Nitro Kart 2, and thankfully runs much better, allowing me to fully indulge myself into the world, with a few of these characters looking like they came off of being stoned in the town square. What the fuck happened to you, Cortex? Nitro Kart 3D plays exactly the same as Nitro Kart 2, containing a reasonable amount of content. It's shocking to see a full-on mission mode, making you do specific objectives while you play, alongside the typical win the cup, grab your trophies to etch your ass onto the Crash Racing Mount Rushmore. I was expecting both of these to be a grimy, sludge-filled rehash of the original titles, running both Nitro Kart and Team Racing's content through a potato slicer to burn them in oil, serving up floor fries for $3.99. But shockingly, they didn't. These people decided to put real originality in here with new tracks that have never been seen before or after. Both of these games are a solid deal for what they are. All they're missing is a royal pass offering the player groupings of items they may or may not receive after dropping $59.99 on it. Either way, they're much better than what was available previously on phones. I couldn't get any of these ones to work, and I'm not really upset that I couldn't, because I'm not really missing out on anything. I seriously couldn't imagine any of these, whether you're talking Crash Racing, Crash Nitro Kart 2, or Crash Nitro Kart 2 on N-Gage. However many of these Stone Age classic racing titles exist are worth the time playing. It's a sentiment that can also be said about the final original Crash racing game to ever release that took a completely different approach compared to the previous, known as Crash Tag Team Racing. The goal with this one was to mix the traditional platforming gameplay alongside the racing, which is a reasonable idea to try spicing things up. You can run around finding collectibles, interacting with creatures inside the theme park to purchase new costumes and characters. It was surely a buttered carrot on a stick for the gamers to sink their teeth into, where they inevitably found out that said carrot was actually a stone slab. Now they're stuck spending weeks recovering from mental and physical trauma. In comparison to the previous titles, Tag Team Racing is undoubtedly a downgrade with the overall gameplay. The core ability of drifting has become gunkified rot that is incredibly clunky, the character roster has been diced up with the amount available, and the visual appeal of the tracks, characters, and especially items is missing. The weapons on the battlefield are like toss a dynamite behind you that is practically impossible to miss, or throw a fireball to one-shot the person in first. There's no unique way to use any of them, making the racing become very uninteresting in a short time frame. To scratch the underbelly of enjoyment, you are forced to merge with another vehicle to either sit on the gunner, becoming the Crash vs. most prolific serial killer, or be the driver for that said killer. Initially, the situation sounds like lathering yourself in honey to roly-poly yourself down a hill, but you'll realize very fast that it's not, because you're typically the only one on the track who's in the gunner mode. There's never any threat to you, so anyone who approaches gets blown away in the blink of an eye. When I played Tag Team Racing previously, I mentioned how I don't understand why you don't just pick two characters at the start to have this be a full-on combat racing game. With the way they have it here, all you do is take the first opportunity you get to merge with an opponent, since the core racing is not remotely fun, to blow everyone away, never losing a race. This lack of depth is presumably the reason you have a bunch of other game modes to play that seem to exist just to exist. You got one where you need to complete a lap as fast as possible, another where you need to blow up a certain number of cars, shooting targets, ramming into targets. If you want to complete the game in its entirety, you're forced to complete every track a minimum of 5 times. It's ridiculous. I don't want to say this is by far the worst Crash racing game purely from it being different, but they clearly had no idea what they wanted to do here, seeming to toss random ideas around, putting them in a blender, hoping for the best. You have this gang of ways to play, with not a single one of them giving anyone a lick of the ice cream cone. They should have fully focused on the racing, making it a combat racer, then leaving it at that. But with the way it is now, tag team racing is the only console entry that's definitely worth skipping. Clearly, behind the scenes that seem to be known, they didn't put a single one of the game's tracks in Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, only the few new characters that were added. But at least they tried their best to make this the most definitive Crash racing game on the market, remaking the original Crash Team Racing story to mix in all the Nitro Kart content, as with creating a few new tracks and adding a new mode in Ring Rally. Whenever I have the urge to swallow some kart racing whole, I usually resort to Nitro Fueled. It realistically has everything you need, with more customization for the karts, and the remade tracks look incredible in comparison to the originals, playing more fluidly as well. I unfortunately don't think they're ever gonna make a new Crash racing game, so this is the best one the streets will have for the foreseeable future. You can play your remake of Team Racing / Nitro Kart, you got your remakes of the original trilogy, but no remake of Crash Bash, the first ever partying bonanza this orange fuck stuck his toes into. In the world of competing with Mario to become the platforming mascot kingpin, you apparently need to perform a monkey see, monkey do maneuver with whatever Nintendo was doing to flourish your brand more. That's how Crash Team Racing came to be, as with the pure idea behind Crash Tag Team Racing. So we have monkey see, monkey do to thank for this as well, where it seems to be a lot more split for how people see it. There are certain individuals who want Crash Bash to be rocketed towards the sun when the next NASA or SpaceX launch happens. They're hoping its family dies in an automobile wreck, hating it with every ounce of their being. Not entirely sure why. I'd say Crash Bash hits the nail on the head with a solid portion of the included minigames. Who in their right mind doesn't want to throw boxes made of concrete or ones filled with explosives at Crash characters? Maybe playing sandbox, wheeling around in tanks, painting the sands red. How about jumping around on a pogo stick, splattering your designated color on the ground, accruing points by smashing boxes? When you play these, Crash Bash gives a small taste of amusement. Then when you give one of these polar bear mounting, ice skating, slip and slide conquests a whirl, it makes you want to shut the game off due to how stiff and janky the movement is. I seriously cannot stand a second of playing one of these things. Maybe if you're giving it a go with the Squadron, the vision could possibly be seen. Otherwise, I hate it. But if you want to trudge forward, completing this trash 3 times is not an option, presumably being one of the largest annoyances players have with Crash Bash. The fact you are forced to slog through each of the mini-games, getting 3 wins for every single one in every world, can become tedious, especially with how the actual total of mini-games is not very high. Rather than dishing out an extensive menu filled with a plethora of food options, you're only getting 7 or 8, where they simply change the rules around, add a new item or ability to make it feel different as you progress through worlds, which is a fine move to make, you know, for the ones that are fun. For the ones that aren't fun, it forces each world completion to become an anxiety-filled moment, knowing you need to suffer through the torture once again. A prime example would be when you reach N-ballism. Normally, the bumper car pinball bullshit is alright to deal with. I don't want to say it's fun, since it's incredibly flawed, considering how whether you win or not is not fully in your hands. When the person across from you dies, you're basically playing racquetball in your awkward situation, hoping you can score points on the person to the left or right of you. And when you reach N-ballism, the irritation spikes up tenfold, watch an engine bitch ass having a meltdown, propelling balls everywhere, then adding the RNG factor with the force field gizmo that was included that randomly randomly spawns in, helping whoever grabs it push balls away. It's unbelievably frustrating. Shit like this is littered all throughout Crash Bash as you continue playing it. What I'd say is the absolute worst atrocity is for sure the third world's boss battle against Komodo Mosuf and Joseph. These hooligans are riding some sort of three-storied mech warrior with turrets you need to break down one by one, while you hardly have any health pickups in between. After you finish destroying the beast, both of them come out on tanks, and you need to fight them in a 2v1. It's fucked. Then of course, when they kill you, you need to restart the whole thing all over again. It's a miserable battle. The world does not need this chaos. This boss battle is actually more difficult than the final scrimmage against Nitrous Oxide, where he's the goddamn pinball wizard, acting as the most supremo impenetrable force Crash and his brethren have ever laid their eyes on. It's a steep challenge not a lot of people would want to overcome, surely acting as a contributor for players wanting to tap out. What's funny though is that the whole difficulty situation stems deeper than simply completing levels as normal because of the gems and relics. To scrap against these said bosses, you do need to acquire a few crystals and gems, where a few of them are incomprehensibly sickening to acquire. All of the gems reduce the time limit or reduce the health adjacent points you have, making the minigame slightly harder. Then the crystals typically shoot you in the leg, incapacitating your character by restricting an ability or taking something away from you, doing everything in their power to fuck you over. I wouldn't say any of them are truly unfair, more so annoying depending on what you're playing. By default, any of the polar bear gems and crystals will be swimming up the raging rapids with broken legs, having vicious fish rocketing down the waters to munch your eyes out of your skull because what you're playing is worthless. Whereas the pogo stick crystals are not too terribly bad, since it's a more fluid game for the most part. You thankfully only need to get the specified amount of crystals and gems, so you can skip certain minigames you don't want to deal with, which is exactly what I did. All in all, this game is a 50-50 escapade. I feel as though Crash Bash has a solid amount of enjoyment to be had with it, with specific portions, then a flip side that ruins it completely with beyond infuriating minigames you're forced to deal with and keep playing repeatedly during the game. I could never see myself unironically sitting in my throne, going through the task of acquiring every single trophy, gem, crystal, and obviously the relics, an item that haunts certain individuals to this day. Words cannot stress how atrocious and beyond disgusting it is to reach 200% completion in Crash Bash. It's a true gaming challenge not many have finished fully. The goal to get them is simple. For the gold relic, you need to beat the arena champions, as they're called, 2 times in a row without losing, and the platinum is win 3 times in a row without losing. But these area champions are ones who would have gotten in the ring with Andre at WrestleMania 3, wearing their Rise Above Hate t-shirts, completely disregarding the body slam, and just twirled his ass around by the ankle, launching him into the crowd like he's a 500-pound paper plane, then picked up Madison Square Garden itself up off the ground, catapulting it towards the sun at speeds no human could comprehend. Simply put, the fabled arena champions are the AI cranked up to the absolute maximum, doing anything they possibly can to ensure whatever minigame you're loaded into is unplayable. They all become a 3-on-1 tussle, giving you 0 breathing room. And the fact you need to win 2 times in a row against this shit to get 1, then 3 times in a row to get the other relic, would make anybody vomit. 200%ing Crash Bash might actually be the hardest thing to do in a PS1 game. It's honestly laughable how hard it is. It would make any sane human leave this filth in the dirt to go play like Hercules, maybe Mortal Kombat Special Forces, or yet another Crash Party game, specifically Crash Boom Bang, that released 6 years after Crash Bash as a Nintendo DS exclusive. How this exclusivity tactic came to be is not fully known, but it's not the worst chess move, since Boom Bang is not going to stimulate many gamers' brains, having them fall head over heels till sundown, still craving for more. Rather than only making certain segments of the game game fun like they did with Crash Bash, they decided to one-up that to make nothing fun at all. A large fat roll of the time spent playing Boom Bang is you sitting there pressing X, reading text boxes, moving around the board, hoping to rack up items that are needed to progress that come about randomly. It's kinda strange they didn't want to make the mini-games more frequent in a video game that's supposed to be centered around playing them. And yeah, obviously Mario Party has the overworld thing, as do most other that fall into the party game category, but the drawn-out nature of how long you need to sit here waiting is nonsense. We're talking 5 whole minute stretches of playing helicopter with your undercarriage pressing X. The levels drag out to absurd lengths because of this. The first level took a little over a half hour thanks to all the in-between time. My favorite part about this conundrum is that when you do inevitably have the king's blessing to play a minigame, most of them are not remotely close to scratching the pearly gates of the gaming Bible. A majority of these gemstones are no more complicated than tapping a hole on a screen. Practically all of them are hardly interactive. As much as I tried my best to be entertained while taking a whip to this thing for the second time in my life, I couldn't have any fun. When you're playing a game that's starting to make you feel as if you swallowed a bottle of high dosage melatonin, that's not a good sign. I really don't think it would have been a terrible idea if they brought over a few of the Crash Bash minigames here. Of course, they'd be stripped down a bit, creating a little crusty ass Pocket Fiesta compared to the original, but it would have made the excruciating wait time slightly less painful. When you got players sitting there, hardly looking at their screen, pressing X on cooldown, waiting for their nasty fuck freezer meal to be done in the digital microwave, what's the sense of playing? When you actually can, that is. The fact there's segments that have you watch the AI playing a minigame where you bet on who's gonna win is perplexing beyond the boundaries of reality. It reduces the interactability even further, sending me to the Drake of the 99 Dragons Shadow Realm Countdown clown show. Why would anyone care about this unless they're playing with a real person? I do believe Boom Bang is very simple and straightforward for why it's a rotting carcass. I've played it previously, I played it now, and I seriously don't ever want to do it again. The public reception of this game was pretty deep in the trenches, not only by us peasants, but also by our lords, our kings, the larger gaming news outlets. So I'm assuming that's why Chokan Crash Bandicoot, the sequel to Crash Boom Bang, was not released in Western countries. It came out for mobile in 2007, utilizing motion controls of the Docomo phone, and was surprisingly lost media until 2025. I wish I could give it a true spin myself, but I unfortunately cannot since I can't make the motion controls work in an emulator. What a shame. Honestly though, I just see this the same way as Crash Racing. Yeah, I guess it's cool for the people who are using these phones to have a little game to play, but I'm more interested on how you can take some of these brick phones, throw that bitch at a wall and back over it in a truck, and it will still turn on, rather than indulging into the simplistic nature of this game. After Chokan dropped, it would be a whole 18 years before the world saw another Crash Bandicoot party-esque arena gaming title, that being Crash Team Rumble, a game seeming to have a reasonable amount of thought put into the gameplay loop, having characters play different roles in a match, also adding a few usable power-ups, making the overall experience come off as more intricate. Now, I'm not gonna pretend Team Rumble is a full-on mental test, where players would need to use brain power equivalent to deciphering the reason as to why a group of rogues put Nutmaster on store shelves and thought it was a good idea. Surely the game would get tedious and stale after a short time frame due to the lack of variety. No one is handling the thick six here. It's more goofy fun, or would be goofy fun. Only 3 short years after release, Team Rumble is effectively dead. I'd be sitting here toasting my ass in the throne for 20 minutes, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for a match, or finally reaching the lobby screen with a few other souls that would never fill up. So clearly no one's playing this game anymore, and I don't think it's worth the $30 I spent on it if you're not able to fully play it. You can realistically only run around playing against bots, hoping to scratch that itch of a faster paced game, tornadoing through the battlefield, murdering your opposition, dunking Wumpa fruits in your team's goal, attempting to stop your enemies from doing the same. From what I've gathered on the streets, people appear to be under the impression Team Rumble is a fun game. I cannot cannot really say for certain. I just kinda wish there was a real single player mode because of the player count problem. Nonetheless, there's nothing anyone can do about it, and I'm not really sure if the studio is going to continue releasing more spin-off Crash games or what. My guess is presumably not, since the big boss is nowhere close to as relevant to the mainstream as he was 20 years ago, but I'm glad the carnivores of gaming have had real meat to eat throughout history when looking into the Crash spin-off market, where Crash Team Racing and Nitro Kart are clearly the ones above all. The mobile titles were alright for what they are. That does include Crash on the Run, a Subway Surfers styled game that you cannot play anymore. However, if you really want Crash games on your phone, there are other people who put their own hands in the basket with Crash Tag Team Kart Racing, using whatever the fuck these washing machine ran puffballs are for screenshots, not even working when you open it. And the other I saw was claimed to be Crash Bandicoot Endless Run, when in reality it's Crazy Wolf Dash Run. That's nothing more than an ad farm. Then finally, the party titles are where it gets a little more hairy. Crash Bash is semi-decent, Boom Bang is a piece of junk, and Team Rumble has good frosting, with the cake itself being filled with lard since you cannot find a match. But I'm curious to hear all of your thoughts on these Crash spin-off titles, or if you're craving for another one to be released, like making a brand new Crash racing game where you have a gas tank and you need to spend real money to fill it back up whenever it empties. Let me know down in the comments. Big ups to all of our channel members who go above and beyond each and every month, generously supporting the channel even further. If you would like to join them and get early access to content, hit the join button right next to the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, take very good care of yourselves, and I hope to see you all again in the next video.